Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Mars, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. I hope you're having a fabulous Tuesday. If not, there's still some time left in this day to turn it around. Peace and blessings to all of you who are having a great day. I want to give a shout out to Brother Nick Cannon, who lost his 5-year-old son. I'm not going to sit up here and say, hey, I know how you feel. I cannot possibly fathom the loss of a child by a parent. But I would ask on this show that we do send out prayers to Brother Nick and his family. This was his seventh child, the youngest of the seven. And I think his name was Zen. I'm not sure. Sister Tana sent that over. So duas out to the Cannon family and hugs, hugs, hugs. I also want to begin this show by prefacing that the things that we're going to talk about in terms of the title, don't sleep on the far right GOP bromance. There's going to be a little bit of historical narrative that I'm going to share with you. And what I'm going to share with you is the fact that, brothers and sisters, we're here for a reason. We're here for a reason. And the reason may not be what you're thinking. The idea is there's been a turnabout in terms of strategy. Now, why am I talking about white nationalist candidates? I'm talking about the fact that there's definitely been a resurgence, if you will, of people who have gone on this mantra that they are reclaiming America, that somehow, someplace, America was taken from them. Not that they invaded, not that they didn't rape and pillage and kill people, not that they brought over slaves, but somehow, brothers and sisters, they have been wrong. Whiteness in America has been wrong, and the victims of whiteness are the ones who did it. Well, if you're going to throw that out there, brothers and sisters, then we need to have a full conversation. Yesterday's show, if you need to go back and revisit, I talked about forecasting, deception, and fake news. Well, we are in the gist of it right now. I did it for a particular reason, brothers and sisters, because somebody reached out to me and said, when are you going to do this show? I said I'm going to do it because I've been talking slowly about the 2022 elections, the midterms, and I want all of us, now that we've had this conversation about deception and fake news, to be able to take some of the things that we said, brothers and sisters, and be able to develop our own platforms and conceptual understandings on what's going on, not in just a broad scope, but locally. This thing happens locally. Whether you're in D.C., whether you're in Maryland, whether you're in California, whether you're in Texas, Oklahoma, these things are happening right now. You have a platform, brothers, that's been laid out since 2014, whereby people are thinking all of a sudden like they were thinking in the early 1900s. A lot of you guys don't know, but then in the early 1900s, they had a massive show of white power, quote unquote. And it was over 100,000 Klansmen that marched on the U.S. Capitol. They marched on Washington. They had the approval of politicians who were there. They had approval of the people in the areas. They marched on white makes right, and it was classical. But what happened, brothers and sisters, is shortly after that, the numbers fell from 100,000 to barely 30 or 40,000 people. People didn't want to necessarily be listed as being a part of the KKK. Therefore, you have an intellectual movement that says, let us build a case based upon our gripes, but also build a case upon the fact that people who will not do their work will be more apt to accept fiction. We will give them fiction. So in reversing that, I don't want to give you fiction. People say, these are some of the jokes that make sure I'm never going to be a big time comedian. If that's the case, that's fine. In fact, thank you, Mr. Gregory. I appreciate you telling me I was 22. But he said, these are the things that we talk about that save our children. And I'll balance that off and save the people, or share in somehow giving information that uplifts our people and make sure that we're not caught blindsided by some of the old tricks. Now, I'm going to break this thing down as best I can to let you know how you can deal with it in your space. This is not a linear conversation in any regards. This is a larger conversation in terms of what we can do, what you can do, what I can do, or what I've been thinking, what we could be doing together. Because this whole thing, white nationalist candidates, it should scare you. It should put a bee in your bonnet, because you know, brothers and sisters, as sure as I'm putting it up here and talking about it today, It's been going on for 3, 4, 5 years. The idea that you can present something to people who have been summarily and objectively cast as weak-minded and dim-minded and prone to emotion and fear, if you give them a platform that they feel like is their platform and it does not have the rudiments of truth, the rudiments of logic, the rudiments of reason, and you allow them to operate on nothing but emotion and nothing on misinformation, guess what, brothers and sisters? You get 2021 heading to 2022. This is Preacher Moss, the Shout Out Show. We're going to get started. Hit me. And we're back. What's going on, family? This is the SOS, the Shout Out Show. I'm your host, Preacher Moss. That's not what is important. What's important that you tuned in for this bit of time. I have a big announcement as well. We have broken 200 subscribers. We're at officially 202. Whoever those 200, those two people are, we appreciate you. Thank you very much. So let me get to this without fail. First of all, again, we want to shout out the Cannon family. Tragedy. Allah knows best. But I also want to make sure that anybody's going through some hardships. I know a good friend of ours, Sister Muhammad, she lost her mother-in-law. I mean, we've made those announcements, and it's sad that it happens around the holiday season, but it happens. It's not to demean, not even demean, but in any regards, take away from the significance of it. But I also think that we also need to be a lot more cognizant of people. And in our religion, there's a thing that's talking, you're supposed to visit the dead. You visit the living, you're supposed to visit the dead. So I'm going to take this as an opportunity to say, you know what? Make sure you visit your loved ones who have passed away. Visit them in prayer, but also visit them in the spots where they've been laid to rest. I'll leave that part alone. Let me go ahead and get to my Shout Out Show family. We have quite a show today. And I am going to ask right up front, brothers and sisters, that you give me a little latitude, because while I'm all of 54 years old, this thing that we're going to talk about, when you do the research, it just goes back and back and back and back. So I'm going to pick it up in the 1800s and try and bring it through to where we are right now, inshallah. So before we get that, let's go ahead and get into our comment section, our Shout Out Show family. First up, we got Sister Mary Moss. What's going on, Mama Son? She's saying having a great day. Have a great day, SOS family. Absolutely. We appreciate you. You guys notice Mom has gotten better on that keyboard. I didn't want to say nothing because I might jinx it. Okay, thank you so much, Mom. We appreciate you. Next up on the Shout Out Show, we got Sister Ree. What's going on, Sister Ree? You came in second behind Mom, but I didn't want to say anything. We appreciate you, Sister Ree. You keep cooking. I got a picture I'm going to send you after the show. I want you to check it out and let you know you have my full support for this idea. All right, so shout out to you and Brother Derek and Brother Jawan. Appreciate you. Next up, what is the show without Altaf Rashid coming all the way from Toronto? What is the show without our quality control person from Canada, making sure that we're putting together a good show, and the platform is solid? What's going on, Brother Altaf? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Our Canadian ambassador, Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, on time. Appreciate you tuning in today. Thank you. Next up. Oh, and here's my sidekick, my road buddy, Mr. Johnny L. Thomas, better known as JT. JT, we talked about this, I think, about 3 weeks ago. And from that conversation, I started doing a little research, man. I hope you will jump in on some of this conversation. Maybe we'll have some other people, Brother Eric, Brother Bilal, Brother Salahuddin, who will jump in on this subject. I'm inviting everybody to jump in, because a lot of times we talk about this whole idea of white nationalists and things like that. We're speaking from a space where, in some regards, if you don't have the homework, you're not any smarter than the white nationalists. You are working from a guaranteed deficit, a very pronounced deficit, if you're just going from emotion. If you're not looking at some of the breadcrumbs, some of the literal and social breadcrumbs that have been led up to this point in time, you're going to miss parts of this presentation that I'm trying to give you. And I'm trying to give it to you, brothers and sisters, because guess what? These people are not the smartest folks in the room. That's where you have fun. That's why I'm a comedian. Next up, who we got, Sister Satana? Sister Fatana, so you got me up next, our consultant producer. Thank you so much, Sister Fatana, for making this possible, bringing this whole thing together, being able to work. Look here, no strings, and look. That's right, brothers and sisters. I don't have any strings. Sister Satana is running it back. In fact, if she didn't want to hear me right now, she could mute me, and the rest of the show would be ruined. But she wouldn't do that. We appreciate you, Sister Satana. Thank you so much. And we got Sister Ika. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Ika has not been on the show in a while. We hope that you are feeling well. She's on rebound. Make sure you have du'as sent out to her in Depok, Indonesia, checking in on the show. Assalamu alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Ike, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your participation. The title, brothers and sisters, is Don't Sleep on the Far Right GOP Bromance. Do not sleep on the far right GOP bromance. In a lot of my lectures, when I talk about race and diversity in America, there's a part of my lecture where I say that the racists are not that smart. And I say the racists do basically three things. They have three categories of things. Listen very closely. The three things a racist will do, listen carefully. Whatever it is that's good about you, they'll discredit. Whatever it is that's bad about you, they highlight. And whatever it is they don't know about you, they'll make up. Let me say it again. Whatever it is that's good about you, they'll discredit. Whatever it is that's bad about you, they'll highlight. And whatever it is they don't know about you, they'll make up. Now, here's the thing you have to know, brothers and sisters. That a racist person against a black person or a Latino or a Jew is even more racist with a white person. In fact, what you're seeing, brothers and sisters, is that white people are being impressed by white racists. Preacher, you kidding me? No, it's been going on for years. The term, brothers and sisters, nigger lover is not a term of endearment. It's been around for a very long time. And it was based on the fact that there are people who had moral principles and moral center to say that slavery was wrong. That some of the laws that were meant to make people stay in bondage and make people disadvantaged, even up to now, was wrong. Constitutionally, morally, spiritually, and even according to their own religious edict, it was wrong. So what you have now, brothers and sisters, at a presidential level, thank you, Mr. 45, at a presidential level, you had somebody who was willing in a very open way, not hidden, in a very open way, take those three principles I taught of the races and oppress his own people. Now, if I were racist, I said, that's absolute genius. I'd say it's absolute genius because he's figured out a way to take all of these fears, if you will, move them out of the way and give people this false sense of promise and position. Promise and position. So I'm going to show something right now, and I'm going to talk about it. Sister Tana is going to cue this up. I'm going to show you something. We're going to talk about it, but I want you to pay very close attention to what these people in the news are speaking about, and then we're going to come back. All right.
A chilling sight in the nation's capital, a white nationalist group known as the Patriot Front descended on the National Mall over the weekend. Its members wore masks, some carried plastic shields, and according to their banner, they were marching, as they put it, to reclaim America. Joining me now, early start anchor and CNN correspondent Laura Jarrett, and back with us, CNN senior political analyst John Avalon. Look, we can agree that this one is too many, right? To see anyone marching a white supremacist to the Lincoln Memorial is a sight that none of us ever wants to see.
There's something almost too on the nose about having a bunch of guys dressed up like they're ready to go to war, dressed up with like battle armor and shields, because in their minds, the Civil War never ended, right?
Right.
And what they're chanting is always so telling. Reclaim America. When was America ever taken? And who was it taken from and by whom?
Well, they feel like it's been taken from white folks.
But since when are brown and black people ahead, right? So it's since when are
They're
white men
applying
still not on
logic to
top?
their anxiety.
My point is to say there's something so remarkable about having self-avowed white nationalists, white supremacists, marching on a memorial for somebody who signed the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yeah.
It just sort of exemplifies the country's ongoing struggle with racism.
Yeah, and look, the fact that we're seeing an acceleration in the wake of Charlottesville, that these are young folks and they're masking and they're carrying shields and battle armor, which of course is a sign of their own weakness. These are weak, anxious people trying to find definition and strength in this kind of militaristic white nationalist nonsense. The reason it's more than just a bunch of clowns trying to march on the Lincoln Memorial is the ADL found that this particular group, the Patriot Front, was responsible for 80% of the white supremacist propaganda found on campus and elsewhere in 2020. So, and it's a young person's movement. This isn't just a bunch of old cranks waving their fist at the sky about how the country is changing.
The leader's 23 years old.
Okay, so let me give you a breakdown. Now, I may be being hard. I may be even wrong. But there's something definitely wrong with that picture. Not just the picture of the white nationalists marching on the Lincoln Memorial. It's the fact that you had 3 white people sitting at a desk talking about this with almost a sense of frivolity. No indignation. They think it's a joke. Because here's the fact, brothers and sisters, that those white kids in those uniforms in those mosques, the uniform says, brothers and sisters, that they are framing this thing not as a movement, but as an army. What you saw January 6th was a very unorganized army. Nobody was in charge. The general didn't show up for the war. That would be Trump. But the thing I want you to know is, as they laugh, they're in their 30s and their 40s. But the kids who are doing the marching, the youth, they're not just 21 years old. They're 18, they're 17, they're 16. This thing permeates all the way down into our educational infrastructure that we're fighting right now. You have a generation, brothers and sisters, in the next 3 years, if the educational curriculum bows the way that certain people wanted to, you're going to start educating generations of kids who don't know about slavery, who don't know about the dark history of how America really became America, who don't know about DACA, who don't know about Martin Luther King, who don't know about Freedom Liberation March, who don't know about women's rights. You have this whole thing, brothers and sisters, while they're talking about kids in masks, they didn't talk about the larger picture. Because when you talk about people marching, let me break this down. All the people in that video who are marching, I guarantee did not come from Washington, D.C. or Virginia or Maryland. They coalesced from around the country. Now do your homework. Look at what we have here. We have California trying to put out white nationalist candidates. We have Arizona. What do you know about California and Arizona, brothers and sisters, particularly up north? Up north, when you're talking about this, I want us to be really clear. Northern California has a lot of issues with far-right extremists. You can look at Wisconsin. All of these cities, brother, all these states, brothers and sisters, were in play in the last election. So I say, understand the far-right GOP bromance, brothers and sisters, but because before you had this thing, the GOP had another split personality. That split personality is called the Tea Party. And the Tea Party offered the same, I want to say, lighter argument that the far right does. They didn't have the gravitas that we had in the Trump years to say all these outrageous things because they did not have a leader who they identified with and summarily gave them example to do so. So there was some sense of decorum back then with the Tea Party. But the Tea Party, brothers and sisters, was at that point in time the far right. The evangelicals were part of that, but it wasn't extreme. It was still a party of ideas. Now it's a party of intimidation. The GOP finds himself in the same situation that they found himself with the Tea Party, which was they realized we're not the Tea Party, but we need the Tea Party to win elections. We need the anger. We need the misinformation. We need the emotional outpouring of these people to tip elections. So this is a clue, brothers and sisters, a very strong clue that something is brewing in all these countries around, not countries, I'm sorry, all the states around the United States. And if you want to really, really get specific, this is forecasting. If you run a white nationalist candidate that identifies with a white nationalist candidate, he or she may not win. Hear me now. He or she may not win, but it brings to the forefront the plausibility of their arguments. In many cases, they're not trying to win. You still have too many people who have to, I want to say, respond to constituents and do real legal work, passing bills other than we're trying to reclaim America. That's not a platform. That's a battle cry. And if we're going to be even more serious about this, brothers and sisters, we have to figure out what we're going to do for all these people who are literally, look at it, thinking they can run for political office. Now, I'm going to say something, and I hope it resonates correctly. These people that we're talking about, they're not the smartest people in the room. In fact, the smartest people in the room are not in the room. They are the people who are writing policy, hoping that these people exact this policy and execute this policy because it's beneficial to them. It's sort of like, when there's a war and rich people's interest is at stake, brothers and sisters, they don't send rich people from their family to go fight the war. They develop legislation and they develop laws like the draft back in the day to make sure your son goes to Vietnam or you go to civil war, but my people, my family stays safe. It's the same thing here. The bromance between the far right and the GOP is the GOP is scared now. If they don't identify with the things that the far right is talking about, they may find themselves out of the cold. Not losing to a Democrat, brothers and sisters. Oh, no. Losing to a far right candidate. Do you see the picture now? Do you understand what I'm saying now? The white nationalist candidates, brothers and sisters, are not running against Democrats. They're running against other GOP people who don't accept the platform. Ooh, I told you guys what racists do to black people. We've been knowing that for years. But isn't it interesting what white racists do to white people? It's delicious. So let me throw this out. What do we do? What do we do? You're not in the GOP. You're not a white nationalist. But I thought about this, brothers and sisters. And I believe, in some regards, it has little teeth. Just like the people who covered themselves up in March. And throw this out here too, brothers and sisters. The last two marches that have come through, there was another march before. There's one in Philadelphia, if you remember correctly. I think I showed that video. But there was a march in Philadelphia of this same group. They put their mask on. They're not really announcing their rallies because you're in D.C., you might get shot up. But they run through, and they're gone. They run through, and they're gone. What have they learned from Charlottesville? What did you learn from Charlottesville? It means don't get identified. Wear your mask, wear your dark glasses, your fake beard, whatever. But here's the thing I want us to understand. There's certain things that anonymity don't hide. There's certain things that anonymity don't hide. Economics is what anonymity cannot hide. Hear me now. If it were me, brothers and sisters, and I looked up and I saw these white nationalists running down the street with their mask and all of that, Even going back to January 6th, because January 6th, it's not you'll find out more and more and more. Everybody knew about January 6th. I'm not a scientist, but I guessed it on the show. Smells like a coup to me on January the 5th. Economics is one of the greatest things I believe Allah has ever created. It's an equal opportunity, brothers and sisters. I'm not saying it's equal access, but it's equal opportunity. And if you can find a way to navigate access, whatever those hardships are, the basic premise of economics is there's only a certain amount of money around. It is the ultimate net zero about money, not about opportunity and access. It's about money. I would say that we somehow punish those who, for lack of a better word, harbor this type of discontent and this type of protest. I would say the next time we're in Washington, D.C., brothers and sisters, that all the shops, if you will, where they march in front of these shops, I would ask everybody in the Maryland, D.C., Virginia area to openly boycott those shops for the next 6 months. Don't go in. Don't go into the hotels. I would say don't even go into work. Crash the tourism, brothers and sisters. Crash the tourism. Crash the infrastructure of what rich people count on, which is this, like I talked about yesterday, permissibility to oppress. That's different. So when you go into these little towns like I have here, guess what? Maybe it's not a lot of black people in Arizona at that point in time, but it's a lot of Latinos. And understanding that if you don't make a stand now, these people who are believing that they can run these campaigns, if you make a stand now and you tell these people these are the repercussions, whereby if you decide to do that, we will crash the entire system. It's sort of like my brother Nuri Amir talked about Bitcoin. The reason why Bitcoin would be around is because Bitcoin is tied into computers. And the only way, Nuri said, to shut down Bitcoin is actually just close all the computers, because Bitcoin is lodged on everybody's computer. And if you shut down the internet, this whole country would go into chaos. They won't do it. But this one, brothers and sisters, I'm saying let's be preemptive. We need a national police. We need a national police that goes around and speaks to all these municipalities, all these cities, these towns, and saying, well, listen, there's a way to handle that. We just won't do business with the people who won't speak up. Now, I'm not saying support it. I'm saying the people who won't speak up. Therein is a little wiggle room. Let me tell you what the wiggle room is. Economically, the people who do this thing are not in the strongest position. Put up by a lot of rich money to do these things, guess what? And I always used to say to everybody in the posse back in the day that went out and strung black folk up, you know what they had to do the next day? Go to work. Well, we ain't going to take anybody being stringing up. We're going to make sure that when you go back to work, there's no job there. Think about when we had the Karens. Remember, you had the proliferation of Karens, and they were calling, and they thought, I'm going to call the police. And when they were found a fraud, brothers and sisters, everybody, poor Karen, and we were angry. Somebody said, particularly the man in Central Park who got her picture and put it out on the internet, that lady lost her job. There's another case of a New York trumpeter who his son was attacked by a lady. She said that he stole her cell phone, and she called the police on. He didn't sell a cell phone, brothers and sisters. She made this big rouse. But you know what? People took pictures. People held the lady accountable. And I'm saying, let's not let it go to the Justice Department or the legal system here in the United States. That's fundamentally flawed. We need to have our own justice, but the justice now needs to be, I want to say, framed around economic power. Now, brothers and sisters, this is not new. It's not new. I will not lie to you and say it's new. What I'm saying is that it's overlooked. What I'm saying is the model has not been refreshed in quite a number of years. What I'm saying is, while we diddle away our time on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and TikTok and all those things, we haven't harnessed the power to make this an economic question as opposed to a racial question. Because what you find is that people don't answer racial questions. We got some comments, Sister Tana. Can we put them up, please? Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother Eric, I just shouted you out before you came on the show, man. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us. All right, let me increase my screen. You know, your brother's eyes aren't that good. Danger is now that elections will be won by white nationalists by any means necessary. Steal the election. I agree, but it's more important for the people who are in office to be pressured by the white nationalist agenda. Knowing that separately, brothers, separately, a white nationalist agenda won't win. They'll get some, you get the Marjorie Green, the crazy stuff. That's more like QAnon. A white nationalist agenda won't win. I remember, and I would take everybody back to when we had David Duke. Remember, from Louisiana, David Duke. He was a former Grand Wizard. You know, he ran for political office in Louisiana. And he got a lot of press, brothers and sisters. But the thing about David Duke getting a lot of press was that he didn't win. He showed all these other people, look, I'm out here affecting change. I'm out here changing minds. I'm out here, I want to say, influencing the political process. This is what the white nationalists will do. They're going to, raise the profile, which means that recruitment will increase. Number two, brothers and sisters, they will feel heat from those who are not really part of the political process. They're part of the lever to put pressure on these GOP people who are in office now to adopt through laws, to adopt through mandates their agenda, or at least parts of their agenda, which make these people feel comfortable. And guess what? Gets their vote. And then the last thing, and I'm going to take this comment from JT. And then the last thing, brothers and sisters, and it should have been the first thing, is that you now create, hear me now, you now create an environment based on fiction. You now create an environment, brothers and sisters, whereby, hear me now, if you're taking a baby from the womb and they don't come into consciousness until the next, 10, 15 years, they won't know that these things were put in place. They won't know, in this case, what is the big lie. They won't know. And what they see in these spaces all around, I'm talking about, this thing appears to be normal. And so the next one that comes up, this agenda will be normal. You'll have a lot of people who have inculcated to the idea that something is normal, even though it's corrupt. So let me throw this out here. I appreciate it. Let me get to JT's comment. I'm sad that our government appears to be run by people, far-right GOP, who have no respect for the rule of law or the law. Exactly. If they had to deal with the law, Brother JT, and we talked about this before, if they legitimately had to deal with the law, they would be politicians. I'll leave it at that. Let me go ahead and wrap this up. I appreciate you guys in your time. If you have any questions, go to permissiblelaughter@gmail.com. Again, that's permissiblelaughter@gmail.com. Love to hear your comments. All right, Satana, let's wrap up and get these people out of here. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, of course, www.befinanciallyindependent.com. Again, that's befinanciallyindependent.com. If you don't want to go to the website, you know what you do. Call 1-888-496-6845. Again, that's 1-888-496-6845. Also, should you be in the marketplace to get a quality Islamic graduate education, look no further. Bayan Islamic Graduate School is on the horizon and rising up, brothers and sisters. I say go to banonline.org, and that's banonline.org, with premium programs, Islamic law, Islamic studies, Islamic education, and one of the top programs, Masters in Divinity, with a focus in Muslim chaplaincy. You don't want to miss it. Go to banonline.org. And we want to give a shout out, of course, to our newest person, our newest sponsor. We love Brother Jazz Saeed looking out for us. You got to look up, brothers and sisters, Community Urgent Care. Again, that's community urgent care. I want you to go to convenience. I said community. Oh my gosh, I'm tired. I mean convenient urgent care. Make sure you check them out. CUC. You see the title on the bottom with 3 locations, and within the city of Houston, you have Cypress, you have Park Road in Houston, and you also have Pasadena. Listen, that's our show. You guys have been amazing. I appreciate you. You know what? Think about what I'm talking about. I'm trying to be proactive. I talk about forecasting. The other part is once you have some things that are in your purview, what are you going to do? I've talked about what I'm thinking. Let me know what you're thinking. I'm Preacher Moss. It's a shout out show. Inshallah. See you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm out this way. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Well, team, we've come to the end of yet another show. And I have to say, I had a good time, and I hope that you had a good time as well. Listen, at this part of the show, we have no more show. I could literally sing a song saying we have no more show. However, to spare all of us that embarrassment and chaos, I'm just going to say, please join us tomorrow here on the Shout Out Show, Monday through Thursdays, and every first Saturday, we do our Saturday Spotlight. Here we are again, 5 to 5:30 on the Central Time. And of course, we're going to do our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock p.m. And of course, that would be 6 o'clock on the West Coast. So, time for you to go, because it's time for me to go. I think I will do that song. Thank you for coming to the show. Thank you for coming to the show. That's all the lyrics I wrote. But you get the idea. See you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum. Shout out.